In 2012, Ben Affleck was on the promotional circuit for his new film, Argo. The movie tells the story of 6 US embassy officials who were trapped in Tehran following the 1979 Iranian Revolution, and how the CIA pretended they were a film crew in order to smuggle them out of the country.
The United States government has just sanctioned your science fiction movie.
Perhaps unsurprisingly, this led to questions about the CIA-Hollywood relationship.
Are there many actors in Hollywood who also moonlight as agents, do you think?
I think there are probably quite a few, yes. I think probably Hollywood is full of CIA agents, and we just don't know it. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to discover that, this was extremely common.
Are you a CIA?
I am, yes. And now you've blown my cover, so there goes my career. I just hope the directing thing better work out.
At the time, Affleck's comments were widely taken to be a joke. But in the years since, an increasing pile of evidence suggests that what he said was true. 2 years later, former CIA Chief Counsel John Rizzo published his memoir, Company Man. In the book, he characterized the CIA-Hollywood connection very strongly, writing, "The CIA has long had a special relationship with the entertainment industry, devoting considerable attention to fostering relationships with Hollywood movers and shakers, studio executives, producers, directors, big-name actors." The following year, the second edition of Tricia Jenkins' book, The CIA in Hollywood, was published. In it, she revealed that the CIA's own entertainment industry liaison, Chase Brandon, had ghost-written the Al Pacino thriller, The Recruit.
It became clear that very early on, Chase Brandon, the CIA's liaison officer, was not just an advisor on that script, as the press had reported. Instead, what these documents showed was that Chase Brandon actually was the original writer of that film. He revised the original pitch paper, he outlined and wrote the first draft of The Recruit, and it's clear that he saw the film as a way to recoup the agency's image, enhance its recruitment, and stress the agency's importance in the post-Cold War era.
What about fame? Our failures are known, our successes are not. That's a company motto. You save the world, they send you to some dusty basement at Langley, give you a little lemonade and cookies, and show you your medal. You don't even get to take it home.
In the film's credits, Brandon is identified only as a technical advisor, covering up his true role in manufacturing a Hollywood movie. How often has this happened? Brandon worked on over a dozen major film and TV productions during his time as the agency's Hollywood liaison, but he isn't even credited on most of them. When it came to Argo, you can tell from watching the movie that they were allowed access to film at the CIA's Langley headquarters. Also, in many of his promotional interviews, Affleck was shadowed by former CIA officer Tony Mendez, who ran the Tehran exfiltration and worked as a consultant on the film.
So, guys, if I did my research right, the first time you guys met was at the famous spy bar, Chadwick's, in D.C. on K Street?
That's correct.
If that was right. What do you take away most from that first meeting? What do you remember most about the other person?
Well, there's a great story about my son driving us around and finally to CIA headquarters building. We were told to just follow the lead car and don't stop at the gate. When we got to the gate, the lead car sped away. My son started to accelerate, and I said, "Don't screw this up, Jesse." And all of a sudden, 8 guys came out of the woodwork with M16s.
Yeah, stop the car, get out of here. I was like, whoa, I guess this really is the CIA.
So my wife said, what did you do, Jesse? And he said, I just put my hands up. What'd Ben do?
He cried.
He said, oh shit.
And that is where the story stayed, until years later, when the CIA finally responded to an 8-year-old Freedom of Information request. They released over 200 pages of documents on Argo, Affleck, and the filming at Langley. But before we get into all that, the first movie to be allowed access to the Langley campus was Scorpio from 1973, a violent, moody thriller that did very little for the CIA's desire for more positive public relations. It featured the agency trying to kill one of their own, simply for wanting to retire from his life as a CIA spy and assassin. When word of the filming leaked, director Michael Winner protested, telling a London newspaper, "We only show the CIA killing nasty agents. Young people in America think that the CIA should not exist, but that is naive." Winner described CIA officers as terribly charming and cheerful and gentlemanly at all times. In Scorpio, John Colicos is shown driving through the security barriers up to the CIA headquarters building, walking through the lobby doors and over the CIA seal on the floor of the lobby. This money-shot sequence was replicated in future agency-supported productions, including by Harrison Ford in Patriot Games and Ben Affleck in Argo. More recently, when the FBI's counterintelligence division hired Rocket Media to produce the educational drama Game of Pawns, about the case of Glenn Duffy Shriver, an American student recruited by Chinese intelligence who tried to join the CIA, the company were granted access to Langley. Joshua Murray walked the same steps taken by Affleck and Ford, as well as by the real Shriver. Other productions, including the first Mission Impossible film, the Nicolas Cage torture thriller Dying of the Light, and the reality show Top Chef, were also granted permission to film at the headquarters of America's top spy agency.
What in the name of Jesus Christ nailed to the cross are you doing here? Because you heard the call. That's why. Your future spread out before you like a cruise ship buffet. You were teaching in a classroom, working in a kitchen, training in a gym, and you heard the call. For some, it was adventure. For some, mystique. For all, it was 9/11, and you heard the call, and it was the call of duty and love of country.
But in 2015, the CIA suspended access. Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie's request to film at Langley for Mission Impossible Rogue Nation was turned down because, as they revealed on the DVD commentary, you're not allowed to film the CIA anymore.
And that establishing shot of the CIA, you're not allowed to film the CIA anymore.
Likewise, CIA documents show how Michael Bay's request to shoot the memorial wall in the headquarters lobby for his Benghazi movie 13 Hours was also rejected, as the CIA were only engaging with Bay for the sole purpose of keeping sensitive and unapproved material from the book out of the film. This apparent ban on filming at Langley was lifted in 2018 when Amazon's Jack Ryan came calling, and John Krasinski took the same journey as Ford, Affleck, and the others. The most recent production to be granted this rare access was, I'm not kidding, Pawn Stars.
Are you Rick?
I'm Rick. You must be Rob?
I am Rob. Welcome to CIA.
Pretty impressive.
To understand Affleck's relationship with the CIA, we have to go back to 2002, when he played Jack Ryan in the Tom Clancy adaptation, The Sum of All Fears.
Okay, I work for the CIA.
The movie was supported by both the CIA and the DoD.
You know, you read his books and you have a sense that they're authentic, that you're really getting a sense of like looking behind the curtain, seeing how things really work. Even at the CIA, they seemed almost rueful about kind of, well, yeah, Tom has some good sources here. You know, like they didn't quite like the fact that he had such good sources inside the CIA, and I think he has equally good sources at the Pentagon and Defense Department.
And other people around the world, I suspect.
Yeah.
Chase Brandon arranged for Affleck to make multiple visits to CIA headquarters.
I went down to Langley, the CIA headquarters, spent a lot of time at the Russia desk with the analysts down there. Met the director, met a lot of really interesting, smart people at the CIA.
You also got a chance to go down to the CIA in Virginia and talk to.
Yeah, Langley. That was fascinating. A guy named Chase took me through there. He was, and I got to meet the director and the director of operations.
You met George Tenet?
I met George Tenet, yeah. While I was there, so sort of like stopped in on him and a whole bunch of analysts. I spent a couple of days down there. They really like these books, and it's really important to them that people get it right, that their work be honored and be represented in a way that they feel is accurate. You know, probably nobody has suffered more mischaracterization in popular culture than the CIA.
Brandon observed, one of the things I think that benefited Ben as he walked around the agency was to simply feel the atmosphere of the place. There's a very palpable sense of mission and importance to what goes on there, and I think Ben picked up on that simply by being in the building. Likewise, Brandon also worked with Affleck's ex-wife, Jennifer Garner, who starred in the CIA-supported series Alias. Garner also appeared in a CIA recruitment ad after having been recruited for the role by Brandon.
In the real world, the CIA serves as our country's first line of defense in the ongoing war against international terrorism. CIA's mission is clear and direct: safeguard America and its people.
Do you and your wife ever have discussions about who made the better spy?
My wife and I don't have any discussions like that because those are pre-answered questions. You want your marriage to work, understand which way those discussions should go.
In March 2011, the CIA arranged a tour for Affleck and Mendez of the old Naval Observatory, the former headquarters of the CIA and the location of the agency's Office of Technical Services, where Mendez worked at the time of the Argo operation. Following this tour, the pair attended a round-table discussion session in the director's conference room at Langley, where the filmmakers received input from CIA officials. During this visit, Affleck saw the CIA museum, and in an email he thanked the agency for their hospitality, signing off, "I look forward to returning to headquarters again soon, and I hope very much to see you then." Over the following weeks, Affleck, production designer Sharon Seymour, executive producer Chris Brigham, and location manager Peggy Pridemore made further trips to CIA headquarters. In June, Affleck formally asked permission to film on the Langley campus, and in one email he exhorted, "We love the agency and this heroic action, and we really want the process of bringing it to the big screen to be as real as possible." One public affairs officer wrote back to assure Affleck, "We're trying," and told Brigham, "I'm optimistic and hope we'll be working together." To secure permission to access Langley, the producers showed drafts of the script to the CIA, who did multiple reviews before giving the go-ahead. One internal email from the Deputy Director for Public Affairs told the bosses, "This is a good news CIA story with real-life CIA good guys."
The CIA doesn't typically offer any sort of public access. I think that if this movie was not about an American hero who was a CIA operative, we would not have gotten into the CIA at all.
When the CIA said they'd let us shoot there, we certainly weren't going to not shoot there.
Another internal email by an entertainment liaison officer who reviewed the script said it looks good elaborating, "The agency comes off looking very well, in my opinion, and the action of the movie is, for the most part, squarely rooted in the facts of the mission." When approval was eventually granted, the Deputy Director for Public Affairs let the filmmakers know, and Affleck shot back, "This is great. Thank you so much. I am thrilled. Please let me know whatever I can do. This is a thrill. We will do the agency proud, I promise you." In the run-up to the filming in November, the crew returned to Langley multiple times, and Bryan Cranston was provided a walk-around in October.
They arranged for a visit to Langley, Virginia, and meeting with CIA officers, and fascinating. You know, it broke the ideas of what I thought I was going to see, and very, very normal guys, but very, very close to the breast. They weren't very revealing in their answers at first, and I think that's... CIA? Yeah, it's surprising. Shocking. And I guess it is their nature and their clandestine nature as well as their occupation. And then I think that they realized that I was really there trying to get a sense so that I could replicate and honestly portray the culture and the attitude of these men and women who are very dedicated. That's the one thing I came away with. They are absolutely very dedicated and knowing and hoping that what they're doing is making a difference in the world.
Ahead of the weekend shoot in November, all of the film crew and their equipment was vetted by the CIA, and the Office of Public Affairs sent an email out for volunteers to act as minders, saying, "You'll get to watch the filming happen, see the movie stars, including Ben Affleck, and eat free food from their catering operation. What better way to spend a Saturday?"
So do you spend much time with actual guys?
Yeah.
Is it like we're at a bar and not pretending we're not actually who we are? Or?
It's interesting that you mention that, because like any other work environment, they have their bullshit that they got to deal with, and orders that come down that they have to comply with, that they can't figure out what the hell, or one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. There's always a sense of that when you're working with a large corporation, which, you know, the CIA really is a large corporation. But by and large, they are people who are very sincere and earnest in their desire to seek accomplishment in their fields. And I think, in the case of Argo, I hope that the men and women who are with the CIA will watch this and go, there were some liberties taken, which have to be taken in any filmed entertainment. But I hope by and large they look at it and say that was honest. They treated us fairly, and we're grateful for that.
Affleck has repeatedly emphasized how his film tells a true story, and how accuracy was important to him.
This movie is, it's funny, it's really tense. I mean, it's a true, genuine thriller in that sense, like heart-pounding. It's this intricate spy story, and it's a true story. It's literally kind of amazing that this actually took place. So I wanted to make a movie that would be thoughtful and resonant.
But in the course of which research was incorporated the whole time. I mean, facts and details, and that was the that was the gold in this thing, was that it was real, and you could find all these great photographs and film clips from 1979 that just made it feel much more authentic.
However, his film took major deviations from history, both to downplay the role of the Canadian government in the rescue operation and to demonize Iranians. After the film came out, former US President Jimmy Carter and Canadian Ambassador Ken Taylor, who housed and protected the Six in Tehran, criticized Argo for its misrepresentations.
The timing is pertinent as well. It reminds people that even 32 years later, it's a dangerous neighborhood.
But the film really doesn't give you and your Canadian colleagues, Canada, enough credit, does it? That you were deeply disappointed.
Well, we, of course, invited, in fact, the 6 diplomats to stay with us. They were there with us for 3 months. We welcomed the chance to work with the CIA, but Tony Mendez was there for a day and a half and worked closely with us, but at the same time, it was essentially a Canadian operation.
My judgment is that 90% of the credit for that heroic and brilliant move should have been with the Canadians. And the movie ignores practically any contribution by the Canadians. So, but aside from that, it's a vivid, wonderful film. Not precisely factual, but I hope it gets the Best Picture award.
Affleck also claimed that Argo is apolitical, and that he wasn't seeking to vilify the Iranian people.
I would say the film was not terribly political.
Hopefully it was kind of apolitical. I mean, I wanted to make a movie that Democrats could see, Republicans could see, that people internationally wouldn't be politicized and held up to further one agenda or another. It's not really about that.
For a guy who studied Middle Eastern, studies in college, what was it like for you to take this story and tell it?
Well, it actually made me feel a bit more comfortable because I knew the backstory, I knew the politics, I knew that I wasn't going to step on any landmines in that regard, that I kind of understood the sensitivities.
But throughout its 2-hour run, Argo depicts Iranians as constantly hostile and a violent threat to the safety of Americans. Any notion that Iran's citizens have legitimate grievances is pushed aside in favor of lengthy sequences of Iranians shouting aggressively and burning and desecrating American flags. According to Argo, the threat to Americans is not just the Revolutionary Guard, or even the new Iranian government as a whole, but every single person in Iran.
And with the current tension with Iran and Middle Eastern embassies under siege, the forgotten story is now frighteningly relevant.
So it's not oversimplified, jingoistic, we're all great and these are all evil barbarians.
By depicting Iranians as irrationally angry and violent, and framing the story around everyone in Iran posing a threat to our small band of Americans, the film emotionally reverses what actually happened. In reality, America was and is the much larger power, and poses a far greater threat to Iran than vice versa. But in the world of Argo, the conflict and danger originates from Iran and from Iranians.
You got 6 people hiding out in the town of what? 4 million people, all of whom chant death to America all the livelong day.
3 sequences stand out. One, where the film crew go on a fake location scout in a Tehran marketplace and are hassled, threatened, and even attacked by miscellaneous Iranian citizens. The lengthy interrogation of the group by Revolutionary Guardsmen at the airport. And the ending of the film, which sees the Revolutionary Guard chasing the plane carrying Mendez and the film crew down the runway in a reckless attempt to stop them fleeing the country. None of these events actually happened.
And so when the Americans escaped, contrary to the very vivid end in the movie that brought me to the edge of my seat as well when I watched it, where this pickup truck outran a jet airplane taking off. I'm not criticizing Hollywood, but nobody ever knew that the 6 Americans had been in the Canadian embassy until they were safe in Switzerland.
The CIA's internal history of the operation records how the group's passage through the airport was as smooth as silk. Mendez described how easy it was, saying, "I was armed with the Argo portfolio and would overwhelm anyone standing in the way with Hollywood talk." The Iranian official at the checkpoint could not have cared less. The CIA, who knew how far the script deviated from reality, had no problem with any of this. An email reviewing the script says, There is some fiction thrown in towards the end for dramatic effect, but nothing too ridiculous.
In order to build a movie with a 3-act structure that people wanted to watch, because if you don't do that, no one sees it, and then nobody comes to understand the political ramifications or comes to appreciate what our intelligence service goes through for us or what have you. So you have to make it interesting, and as a filmmaker, it's an absolute imperative to make a film work. This one required actually very little modulation. There was mostly it was things that were omitted, and ultimately, that having cars come down the runway and, I felt like kind of externalized the stress people were under, but didn't change any of the underlying facts.
Funny to think that there are genuine laughs in a story like this, but one comes from the idea that spies and Hollywood producers are hustlers of a different stripe, right?
Yeah. It really is true. It never would have worked if it weren't a true story, because people just thought there's no way the CIA would be working with Hollywood.
In the final analysis, Argo is a love letter to the CIA and to US foreign policy against Iran. And in return, the CIA and the State Department gave the film their full support.
Just out of curiosity, the response from people who, actually lived the events. I know, it must be rewarding.
It was wonderful, yeah. A lot that we saw the house guests. Most of them saw the movie and were really moved. Ken Taylor and saw it with his wife, and his wife was said halfway through, she leaned over to him and was like, "We did get out of Iran, right?" It was really satisfying. Tony, and then actually we showed it to a CIA audience that included the director and a bunch of people, and they were, enthusiastic. So even if they were all pretending, it was really a nice feeling to have people that were part of it or still are part of it in some way participate in the final result and be proud of it.
This unusually close relationship resulted in a runaway critical and commercial success, culminating in then First Lady Michelle Obama awarding Argo the Academy Award for Best Picture. The movie provided a welcome PR boon for the CIA at a time when they were being hammered for their torture program. Perhaps ironically, one of the movies Argo beat at the Oscars, Zero Dark 30, was also supported by the CIA and propagated the false story that torture led to the Abbottabad raid and the killing of Osama bin Laden.
If you screw up a space man movie or something, the only thing that pays the money and you, but if you screw up, when you're trying to tell a story about real people at the CIA, you've done yourself and maybe even your country a disservice.
The agency was so appreciative of what Affleck had done for them that when they joined Twitter a couple of years later, they used their account to thank him.
Theoretically, Mr. Mendez, if Ben called you tomorrow and said, "You know what? I'm out of movie ideas. Give me something else. Give me another story." What would be the next story you would say, "Okay, make a movie about this"?
I would say first that we would sit down with the contracts people and make sure that we could get him under control.
That'll never happen, Tony.
I know.
It'll never happen. That's
not-
why they threw me out of the agency.
But it isn't just the CIA's opinion that the movie had a major positive influence on their public image. The same year, an academic study found that opinions of government agencies, levels of trust in the government, and faith in the general direction of the country all improved after watching Argo and Zero Dark 30. In particular, 34% of people who saw Argo recorded an improvement in their assessment of the CIA. Agent Affleck's promise to do the agency proud had paid off.
Once you know this is an issue movie, I know what the good issue is, I know what the bad side of the issue is, you might as well just turn it off. That doesn't mean that movies can't be imbued with a set of values, and that those values might not stem from a set of political beliefs or coexist with a set of political beliefs.
This is a movie about history, and today we see history repeating itself in oftentimes in tragic ways. What I'm proud of about the movie is that this is an homage to our foreign service members, our clandestine service members who spend their time serving our country overseas, oftentimes in very, very dangerous situations.
and that's something that I'm mindful of every time we screen the movie.
Thank you.
Thanks.